If we stay on the road we're on, we face radical changes to our physical world. This is what the vast majority of climate scientists tell us.
The alarm bells keep ringing. Our citizens keep marching. We cannot pretend we do not hear them. We know what we have to do to avoid irreparable harm. We have to cut carbon pollution in our own countries to prevent the worst effects of climate change.
Since our government started meeting in 1990 to come up with a plan to reduce emissions, global emissions have gone up by 61%.
Ireland is a small country, yes, but we have a large carbon footprint.
Ireland is far off track, the transition it needs to make in terms of emission reductions.
The commitments of individual states are way off course for a safe world.
We're talking about allowing sea levels to rise in the name of protecting an economic system that is failing the vast majority of the people on this planet with or without climate change.
Are you familiar with the term climate change?
I am indeed, my friend. And I haven't believed that I know what it's about.
Floods, having a tan, penguins, and like melting icebergs.
The first thing I think of is polar bears, and then after that I think that probably I should think about it more, but there's so much going on that I don't really think about it at all, to be honest.
I can't see it ever affecting me in my lifetime too badly, you know. I mean, I'd say if anything it'll be more my grandkids I'd worry about, but not me.
We need to change the conversation that we're having with ourselves and one another about the future, because the roadmap that we've laid out at the moment is a road to disaster.
We are at the moment on track more towards 5 or more degrees of global warming, or at least 4. And 4 degrees of temperature change on a global average is almost as big as the difference between the temperature between now and the last ice age. It would be a massive disruption of human civilization.
I mean, you hear stories about the ice caps melting and you know, sea levels rising and temperature and climates changing. It does worry you a little bit, but then you hear these arguments about like that this always has been going on.
We humans have never experienced a hot period on Earth. We've already put more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere through human actions, 40% over the pre-industrial level, than have been in the atmosphere in the last 3 million years. Now, 3 million years ago, when there was that much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, global sea levels were, I think it was 20 meters higher than they are today. It was a different world.
On the science side, it is absolutely clear now. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that assesses all the global science on climate change and synthesises it into a summary for governments, said in 2014 that it's 95% certain that the rising temperatures that we're seeing is caused by human activity. And that's the same level of certainty that we have around smoking causing cancer.
We've already experienced colossal impacts. But many people, because we mostly live in towns, we live in cities, we live indoors, are maybe unaware of the extent to which the natural world is already under assault. The WWF recently published what's called the Living Planet Index for 2014, and that showed an extraordinary decline in vertebrate life. It's down by 52% in 40 years.
We know that Ireland is going to become wetter in the winter, so flood frequencies will increase very significantly. We know that Ireland will become drier in the summer.
We have new storm and flooding maps that have been created for Northern Ireland by the Rivers Agency, and they're very good. But they show that already central Belfast is under significant risk from flooding, and that's without adding on climate change projections.
When I was a kid, I was even aware of, drowning about growing up on the coast, that the water levels are rising, and you're always kind of terrified of the drowning of cities and things. But I mean, I don't know how far away that is, or if it's avoidable in any way,
In February 2002, this part of Dublin had a water level rise of just under 3 metres with the storm surge, 2.95 centimetres. Now, therefore we have to think about, we have to recognise that that wasn't a once-off occasion. It's not going to be something that will never ever happen again.
That's a major issue in Belfast. We've had houses flooded, property damaged.
You take a metre of sea level rise, it doesn't sound like a lot. You amplify that with a 2 to 3 metre storm surge, and suddenly you've got areas that like Clontarf in Dublin, like Sandymount in Dublin, many parts of Cork and Waterford cities, they're going to be underwater.
The last few winters have been so cold and it's boiling now, and this never really happens, so it's not just coincidence, definitely something is going on.
A loss of predictability. This is one of the key things, particularly in agriculture. For example, if you get a spring of drought, you can have an entire year's harvest badly affected. Equally, if you get floods at harvest time, you can have an otherwise good year ruined. So agriculture, and we're still quite an agricultural country, is highly exposed by definition to climate change.
Time is pressing, the window is closing. We can't let this problem be put on the long finger. We can't let it be left for the next generation to solve. We have to actually tackle it seriously in a way we're not doing at the moment.
It's around a lot, so you hear a lot about it, but to be honest, it doesn't really affect me that much, so I don't really give it much thought.
I have friends who are like, oh, I love global warming. Well, they don't mean it, but some people don't really care. They don't see badness.
We're Irish people to say, oh, it's something that's happening in Africa, or it's something that won't affect Ireland, I think is a rather insular mentality. We will become, ultimately, we will change our climate according to the global average. We are a mid-latitude country. We will get the average change of the rest of the world. So if it warms up by 4 degrees, we will warm up by 4 degrees.
Ireland's overall contribution to climate change may look small relative to other countries. When you break it down to a per person contribution, each person in Ireland emits nearly 10 tonnes of carbon dioxide per year. That's more than 100 times the average person in Uganda. And when you compare it to other large countries like India or China, it's still significantly more.
Our emissions remain high per capita. If everyone in the world polluted like the Irish, we'd need 3 planets to survive. Or maybe it's dropped to 2.5 now because of the recession, but it's still 1.5 planets more than we've got. So therefore we're going to have to do our bit to get down to 1 planet living.
If you think of the sort of person who Troker works with on the ground, a small-scale family farmer, a small plot of land, maybe a few livestock, they're on the edge of poverty, on the edge of survival. And there's a lot that they do to maintain their livelihood, but climate change is bringing in an additional stressor on an already vulnerable situation and making it much harder for people to make a livelihood and to work their own way out of poverty.
ካብ ጊዜ ናብ ጊዜ ግን በሐቅ እናተለወጠ ደረቅ ኮይኑ ማይ ዝበሃል ዳርጋ አብዩ ለብዘበን ቁርበብ ተወሰነ ያውም ለብዘበን እውን ኣብቲ ዝወቅዕሉ ነበረ ይጀመረን ሰነይ ወቃን ሐምላይ 11 መዓልቲ ጀመሩና ካብኡ ጀመረ ቁርብ ወቂዑ ቁርብ ቆጽሊ ተርእዮ ኣሎ
كلاب زعتنا له مهنيات هذي نفتي ناي كلابات ممكن خان تخلطات
هو
وتخلطات هذن أنا طعمت مخانم سنة نفلت تخلون تخلي وساب من تاكن رد ونا طعم تخلطات ونا أنا طعمت سلوز بونو تطبق عيار نخرج كم نحنا أول زعتنا له مهنيات الصوم
تخلي ياخذ كل نقول الصباح حدا تولد زمن استخدم تلاب زمن تتخلص كل قصة أصلا زي خل ماي ولا دا استنبال بتخونه حرب سنزخل كاو حد شعمت مسكرن كعند جنان تخلو تزحرر
مريت بكون كل ما يكركم كل 3 ليسو تحبر السب كم هاري خدنا بلا على درجه بس حامل هذا سبك سدته يخدم سدت ما وصف تحكون ولا اسات انت رخيبو او تفراليو ودك خمهري خيل دك خمهري خيل تحبر السبنا يبعد تفراليو فابريكات من كوسي خيل تمهر حال ست تطريت هاجر معنات انبا مريت ليس بيسجل تمهر هنا فقد سدتن يخيد هزوب نمنا ابرون ابنت حنت ابنت حد عامت بو يزله اخلف تزيات ولق يزله شعيت هذه بحاجز تباهيلو منግስት ተረጂ በቃ ብሰፍትነት ዲዩ ብስተፋላይ ድርቅና ተባለ حاجز انت عامت بستايز حلف انبر كابينا افس بحال ነገር ይዘለው ምንም ከብለ ይخدን ተተላሳሊ ስግን በቃ ኢትዮጵያ ስትልዕለላ ማለት ይሆናል ከዛ
ኣብ ኣየርላንድ ዘለውና ሕና ኒኤናን ይፈላለዩ ሕዚ ኣየርላንድ ዘሎ ብኢንዱስትሪታት ክኸውን ይኽእል ሕና ኒኤና ብዝምቑራፅ ኣግራብና ግራባዳ ብምምጣእ እዩ ሕዚ ኣብ ኣየርላንድ ዘሎ ካብ ኢንዱስትሪታትና ካብ ተሽከርከርቲ ዝወፅእ ጋዝ ንምባል ዝኾነ ንዕኡ ዝኾነ ጋዝስ ምፍጣር
And do you think, like, is climate change something that's affecting the world at all, do you think?
I think so, but then there's a lot of people who say that it's not real and that it's just made up.
The lobby to try and tell us that there is no climate change is very powerful, and even though there's a lot of consensus, there's still so much of the media is saturated by people saying that it doesn't exist and they have a lot more money than the people who don't.
Much has been spoken about denial, say through the likes of the Fox News and the many of the right-wing denial, formal denial. But the most powerful denial is the denial in you and me. We've been told we're entitled. We should have more of this, more of that, more of the other. The science and common sense tells us that we're running out of this, that and the other. We're running out of world.
Human beings, I guess, tend to be greedy, and we're not going to value the environment if we don't value what it does for us. And we need to understand how much it does for us. We need to understand that the economy is based in the environment.
A big part of how we run eco schools in Lagan College is to give the students as much ownership as possible. So we have a senior eco committee, we have a junior eco committee.
I think it was set up because the school wanted to become more of an eco-friendly school and maybe try to get green flags and an eco-ambassador as we are now.
Well, I've been part of the eco committee for 1 year, but I have noticed some really significant activities that they've done. Recycling is a really big part. It's an ongoing activity.
I think everyone should recycle, and I think everyone knows about recycling, and I think everyone should practice it.
Each year they'll set a specific target. This year is research in climate change. So the students are going to be preparing assemblies that they will present to all the students, raising awareness of how climate change is affecting Northern Ireland and how it is affecting the world globally.
One of the things I think was really successful was the forms that were sent out that meant that we could stop receiving junk mail. You know, something we get 300 junk mails per year, and that's shocking. It's such a waste.
I'm only 16 now, and I'm going to be on the Earth for at least 50 years more. And we're already seeing signs of climate change at the moment.
Obviously there is evidence that climate change is happening, and it's quite aggravating that people are ignoring this.
Economic growth relies on the environment, and if we disregard the environment in any way, we're sort of biting the hand that feeds us.
Our generation and the generation of the political system at the moment, they will be viewed incredibly negatively if this is seen as something that they knew about, they had the means to act. It's been shown that acting now rather than later is actually more cost effective, because the longer we leave it, the harder it gets. If we have the knowledge, the means, why didn't we act?
You know, the job of government is to lead. The job of government is to come up with these policies. I mean, they have endless advisors, they have an entire civil service at their disposal. There's very smart people across that sector that I've no doubt have very good ideas in this area. But because it's not a priority of the minister, and because ministers are so busy doing lots and lots of different things, you're not getting that kind of clear direction.
What we would always be calling for is that people take action in terms of political action. That's one of the biggest things they can do in their individual lives, is to talk to their local TDs, talk to their public representatives, let them know that this is an issue that they care about.
We've had a battered society where really it has been, bed down and get on as best you can. And there hasn't really been room, I think, for that kind of debate. But now we seem to be turning a corner.
There's a feeling that there's this momentum building in the climate movement, and more people are getting involved, and more people from less traditional sort of environmental backgrounds, people who are concerned about lots of different issues are sort of coming together and recognising that climate change is a threat to all of the things that they stand for.